In the dead center of the downtown plaza sits the giant juniper tree. It's got the thick trunk and the long branches that hold up leaves that are always trimmed to look like clouds. Somebody obviously looks after this tree, but I couldn't tell you who that is. It's a very beautiful tree, like one of those you'll see in paintings of scenery. It also just so happens to be the oldest tree in the whole town. Or so the people would say. We call it the suicide tree. All the locals do. And I guess you can pretty much guess why without me specifying, but I will. Don't worry. Miss Dunn, who owns a small bakery that's been in her family for years, has hundreds of stories about the old juniper tree. Her family moved to this town in the 40s when it was barely founded, and set up Dunn's Donuts and Desserts, right across the street from the tree itself. According to her family, and the stories passed down to her, the first suicide that they witnessed was in 1946. When an 84-year-old woman named Constance Green hung herself from one of the higher branches of the juniper tree. And the town awoke the next morning to find her lifeless body, swinging from the branches of the tree with a noose around her neck. Right away, people started talking. Not because of the suicide, but because Constance Green was a sick woman who could barely walk herself to the toilet in time. No one could figure out how she managed to hang herself from the tree, let alone walk all the way to the plaza. However, life continued, and the commotion quickly died out, and people moved on. Until 1952, that is, when 12-year-old Marcus Jones hung himself from the same branch. He was found one crisp autumn morning, swinging from the branches of the juniper tree, dead. Apparently, because Marcus had been born mute, his suicide made sense to people. Something about how he was depressed with his life. And after mourning for a few days, they got over it and moved on. And then, in 1958, 30-year-old Eugenia Lang hung herself from that same branch, and she was found hanging from the tree in the morning. Eugenia Lang got more than a week or a month of mourning, though. She got a whole fucking statue. Why? Because she was rich. The Langs owned the town's 2 banks, and when they found Eugenia, dead with a noose around her neck and her designer shoes missing from her feet, they opened an investigation. Unfortunately for them, nothing came up. And in the end, it stayed that way. But the stupid statue still sits in the middle of the park, like a fucking altar. This continued. The number of people hanging from the juniper tree increased. Finally, in 1976, someone started connecting all the peculiar suicides of people who either didn't have the physical strength to kill themselves or were too rich and happy to kill themselves. And the legend was born. The suicide tree. Perhaps the craziest and most tragic of the suicides had to be the death of Nicole Foreman, a 2-year-old girl who was found one August morning in 2007, hanging from the juniper tree. I was old enough to witness that one, and I mean really witness it. I was 17. I babysat for the Foremans all the time. Nicole was one of my favorite children. After Nicole died, the town started to petition for the tree to be cut down, but it didn't work. the tree remained. And then in 2013, there was a survivor. Gregory Minsk was seen tying the noose around his neck by Lindsay Morgan, a cop. She ran over and tackled him to the ground before he could even get his head halfway in. And when she looked at him, she said he already looked dead. He was gone. He wasn't dead yet, but he sure looked it. That's what she says every time she tells the story. That his eyes were glassed over, unblinking. His face was pale, white as snow, and he didn't even appear to be breathing. He didn't react to the impact, and laid on the ground, motionless. Lindsay says she shook him a bit, and eventually got him to snap out of the trance, only for him to start weeping like a baby. He cried for hours at least. That's what everyone says. Couldn't answer anyone's questions. Just cried. It was like he had seen the devil, Sergeant Williams said. When Gregory was finally able to speak, he claimed the tree was evil and that something was pulling him in. The voices. They called to me. He told me last year while we drank on his front porch. What voices? I asked. I don't know. The people who have died there, maybe, they're in so much pain. And they wanted to take me with them. Why couldn't you ignore them? I asked. Gregory didn't answer for a long time, and I thought I had hit a nerve, and I figured he didn't want to talk about it anymore. Because it was beautiful, he finally replied. We didn't talk about it after that. The tree still sits there, tall, strong, and beautiful. No one has done anything about it yet. I'm not sure if it's because they don't want to or because they can't. I try not to pay too much attention to it, which is difficult considering that it's the largest thing in the plaza and I walk past it every day on my way to work. I used to get a bad vibe parking in the plaza parking lot, but now that feeling is gone. And in its place, a soft chorus of voices that come from the juniper tree, singing to me full of pain as soon as I near the plaza. I've just ignored it, but I can't anymore. Gregory was right. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard.